let's jump into this article courtesy of the New York Times. New York Times wrote an article about Theo. Theo's absolutely killing it lately. He's absolutely fucking killing it. So big up Theo Blood Clot Von. It says Theo Von dismantles the internet show. The comedian and podcast is one of the most defining conversationalist. The comedian and podcast is one of the say that again. The comedian and the podcast is one of the defining conversationalists of media now. Why can't I read today? The comedian and podcast is one of the defining conversationalists of media's new MAGA-friendly mainstream, but he can be harder to pin down politically, culturally than his broadcast peers. So it's a really fucking little article on Theo in New York Times. Oh, it's written by John Karamika as well. He's a really good writer. I like that guy. So let's read this quickly. What to say about Theo? Is Theo Von podcasting from the right or the left? By the way, why does that matter? Why do people always need to be pinned down? Like, the need to pin somebody down like this politically is always redacted, in my personal opinion. Has always been so much. Also, the need for everybody to involve themselves or engage in political conversations. Like, I like Theo. He's a funny dude, but he doesn't strike me as the smartest guy in the world. Like, do you really want to hear his opinions on really fucking, you know, super political topics and shit? Do you really want him to opine on certain policies? Or you just want him to do what he does best? You know what I mean? Like, let people do what they do best instead of making them get into the fucking politics thing. When he sat with Trump last summer in the run-up to the presidential election, he led a surprisingly affecting and humanizing conversation about drugs and addiction, unlike any Trump had ever publicly had. But also with Gabor Mate, a Canadian physician who's written extensively about Middle East, the conversation about thousands of children killed by Israel in Gaza reduced Von to tears. Is Von compassionate or crude? With the professor and podcaster Scott Galloway. By the way, why is that even it's almost like the writer is saying, if you like Trump, it's impossible that you can have any kind of sympathy or empathy for kids being killed in Gaza. That assertion alone is fucking crazy, right? Just because you wear a red hat, just because you vote Republican, just because you lean right, you have no capacity to feel any type of empathy, sympathy, or pain for people who get blown to pieces in fucking Gaza. Like, what? Like, honestly, I hate this. This is why I hate politics. Politics is so fucking lame. I hate how it consumes most of our lives. I hate how they try and force it down our throats. I hate how they try to use it as a barometer or as a way to judge you as a person, when really you should be judged on the strength of the things that you say, the things that you do, all these type of things. How you treat your family, your friends, waiters, and service staff in shops and stuff and hotels. That's where people judge you, not whether or not you tick a certain box. And I abhor the idea that people that are Republicans don't have a heart, don't have sympathy, don't have empathy. Like, just because you don't politically align with them doesn't mean that whatsoever. But anyway, what do I know? Let's continue. Is Von compassionate or crude? With the professor and podcaster Scott Galloway, Von spoke openly about his struggles with pornography. The quote, "It was the first kind of interaction with women that I could manage," he said. But also jokingly with Grace O'Malley, a stand-up comedian, about her romantic dry spell, Von assured her, "I think there's a lot of semen heading your way in 2025. That's a really good line, by the way. As an interviewer and a host of This Past Weekend, a podcast that routinely garners millions of views and listeners, ranking among the most watched shows in the country, Von's chameleonic chill is both his superpower and his mask, the result of a kind of lenticular effect depending on the week. He's sophisticate or naif, one of the bros, or a sly interloper. Can't he be everything all at once? Is that okay? Why does that have to be in a fucking neat and tidy box, for fuck's sake? It continues. Von, a all shucks 45-year-old. Oh, he's 45. Shit, he doesn't look that old, innit? Theo might be one of the only white people in media who doesn't look as old as he actually is. He's 45. Fair play. The all shucks 45-year-old with hair somewhere between shag and mullet and a persistent mien of a latent mischief is often lumped into the ingeniality grouped manosphere. Inelegant. Why can't I speak today? The inelegantly grouped manosphere, a loose aggregation of podcast hosts and social media figures. Joe Rogan being the son of that solar system, whose policies lean right forward, or rightward, sorry, whose attitude is allergic to doubt. They have built in, that's a nice line actually, I like that. Whose attitude is allergic to doubt. That's actually something you can describe locals as. Locals are allergic to locals are allergic to that would be the best way. I'm going to say certainly, but that's probably the opposite. They have built in short order a parallel mainstream media ecosystem with personality-driven platforms that often let guests hawk their viewpoints unchecked, creating an echo chamber of boast and brag. I don't know if they do. I'm starting to not buy this unchecked thing, by the way, and this need for certain platforms to like push back and call people out on certain things. Nowadays with the internet, if somebody's chatting shit, you can debunk what they're saying in real time. You can sit down and listen to a Rogan interview with some blowhard, and if you don't like the sound of what they say, or if what they say isn't really vibing with you, and you're getting the hint that they might be chatting shit, you can literally just open up, an AI, a search engine, and ask the questions and figure out if that person's talking shit, yes or no, very, very quickly. You don't need Rogan, you don't need Lex Friedman, you don't need Theo, you don't need any of these people to kind of be the person to push back on that person in real time. It would be nice if they did, fair, but you don't need to. You can just do it yourself. Like, it's fairly easy to do. It continues. Last month, when Von was a guest on the Full Send podcast hosted by MAGA prankster Nelk Boys, he poked at their spacious moral window into regarding booking guests. He says, finally, somebody that's not a sex trafficker on here, which is hilarious. But unlike those peers, Von was pointedly tough to pin down, culturally or politically. He's fear-free, lightly oddball, and unself-conscious inquisitiveness, and his comfort playing with the jumbled signifiers of political affiliation, race, class, and more make him far more than a nebulous performer. Under the cover of a manosphere, he's become one of the defining conversationalists in America. And again, the term manosphere too, just because I'm a dude and I'm largely speaking to a male-based audience, does that have to be a manosphere thing, or is that just a consequence of the audience that you garner, an audience that you attract over time? So what are women-based podcasts, or podcasts that are predominantly listened by women? Are those that womanosphere? Does that even exist? I think those labels make those things more toxic than they are. I'm not gonna lie. I think they make more toxic, because if you're a fresh and fit type of dude, as nonsense and as full of shit as those guys are, those are your guys. No one's gonna tell you about them. Those are people you listen to. You enjoy what they do. You're gonna ride with them. So this labeling of manosphere stuff ain't gonna really change your opinion of them whatsoever, And if you don't like it, you won't go there. So I don't understand this need to label manosphere dangerous. Don't listen to it. It might make you hate women. Oh, it's like, shut up. Fyodor Kapitiani von Kurzweil, is that his name? Shit. Fyodor Kapitani von Kernatowski. Fyodor Kapitiani von Kernatowski III, who describes his heritage as Polish and Nicaraguan, grew up in a small town in Louisiana. He speaks often about his challenging relationship with his family. His father was over 60 when Theo was born, and said that he was legally emancipated at 14. His first brush with celebrity came in 2000 as a teenage cast member of season 9 of MTV Road Rules. Footage shows that Von, already conversant in the same kinds of socially skeptical and laconically self-lacerating humor that still shape his work. He went on to become a stand-up comic. Bloody hell, some of these words that they use unnecessarily. Laconically self-lacerating. What? Why can't you say self-deprecating? Laconically self-deprecating. Okay, cool. This past weekend began in the mid-2010s in part as a platform for Theo Von to talk about addiction and recovery process. That's true, by the way. That's a very good point people forget. In the beginning, this past weekend was personally about him just working through his addiction and recovery issues. And if he had relapsed on anything, he'd go in there and admit it and stuff like. It was actually pretty good for that. And this evolution into this next chapter has been pretty cool to see. He has spoken about his struggles with alcohol and drugs and intimacy disorder, as it has become an interview destination for, as it has become an entry destination for comedians, musicians, actors, and politicians. Von has repositioned himself as a Forrest Gump-esque everyman, careening his way into the top of American popular culture and democracy. You're exceptional at being average. The right-wing personality Candace Owens told him. That's hilarious. Rogan, perhaps his closest analog, treats interviews like a bouts of conversational one-upmanship. Von's mode is almost completely opposite. In his rangy, vibey conversations, he presents as a proxy for the average American citizen, getting bombarded by opinions at all times and simply trying to forge a coherent path through the competing streams of information and misinformation. Last fall, his show went into overdrive, becoming a must-visit for politicians and proxies from both parties, from Trump, Bernie Sanders, J.D. Vance, Mark Cuban, stumping for Kamala Harris, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. But his motivations weren't purely political. He was partially drawn to Trump's, knowing that one of Trump's brothers died of alcoholism-related causes, and thought talking with him might be revealing. By the way, that is very true. That Trump interview that Theo did might have been the best one he did throughout the entirety of that whole political campaign, or during the election, sorry. That might be easily the best Trump interview during the entirety of that election campaign, because the rest of them are a bit of a snooze fest, especially the Rogan one. But I thought Theo going down that angle of addiction, basically talking to fucking Trump about the benefits and the pros and cons of cocaine, like, that was fucking brilliant. Like, that was a really good interview. That was one of the rare ones that, I wouldn't say humanized Trump, it was just a different conversation, you know? I think if you don't think he's human, you're not going to think he's human. It continues. The quote, "You don't hear a lot of his feelings, Trump's feelings," Von told the comedian Tom Green during the recent episodes. "And if you do, he doesn't communicate it in a way where it's very emotional to people. I don't feel like, so I was just curious about that." Von tried to host Harris and Tim Waltz to no avail. He says it was kind of a bummer. I think it would have just let them be more normal, he says. He told Green before pivoting to a thought of why the unvarnished world of podcasts is so disproportionately effective. If something's too much behind the glass these days, people don't trust the glass. That's a good point. And again, I don't know who advised Kamala Harris to like avoid the podcast and shit, but they were really wrong. They were really wrong. I don't think podcasts did a big job in terms of actually swaying people in terms of who they're going to vote for. I think the performance of, someone like a Biden and stuff, and how the economy was going and how people's lives were during the 4 years that he was in, I think convinced people that they're going to vote for Trump regardless. So I don't think anything Kamala would have said in the pod would have changed how the election went. But I still think she puts too much credit, or they were making those podcasters be like too big than what they are. I think Kamala would have walked circles around Rogan. Rogan talks as if he's like this, like he's the final level of interviews and you have to come to him for the truth and blah blah blah. I think Kamala Harris would have absolutely dog walked Rogan. I don't know why they avoided it. Like, these guys aren't that smart. Like, they would have absolutely schooled them. So it wouldn't have changed the election, but I think it would have made them look more human. Like Theo says in his article, it would have made her look more personable. It would have just made people like her more as a person. That would have helped. Because I think J.D. Vance got a lot of that. Look at how much people love J.D. Vance after the Theo interview. Like, J.D. seemed like a cool dude. He seemed like he could hang, have a chat. I think he had an interview with Tim Dillon too. I think that went pretty well. So those things can help in terms of your public perception. But it felt like Kamala and the Democrats were like almost as if they felt like they were too good for podcasts, That's what it felt like. It felt like they were too good to talk to like the regular person. They were too good to go on those platforms. They thought they were too smart for it, too waste of their time, whatever it was. And I wonder if that sort of apathy sort of like was radiating from them, and people, when it came to election, were like, all right, cool, we're going to show you apathy. We're voting the other way. I wonder. Who knows? It continues. And also agree with what he said here at the end, by the way. If there's something too much behind the glass these days, people don't trust the glass. I think that's very true. I think this is a remnants or a consequence of COVID. I think people just don't trust mainstream media. They don't trust governments. They don't trust anybody anymore. And the more you try and say that you're the one that should be trustworthy, people are going to be even more distrustful of you. So yeah, this is probably the perfect time for that sort of stuff. Anyway, it continues. There is no glass on this past weekend, which has anything may happen. Elan of public access television. Von's interviews generally run around 2 hours and can feel even less hurried than that. Key to their effectiveness is neither Von nor his guests appear to have anywhere else to be. A jagged conversationalist, Von sometimes leads with spicy wit, sometimes with curiosity, and sometimes with silence. Often, he's holding on to his thoughts or maybe formulating them, just a couple of seconds longer than is comfortable, nudging his guests to fill the void. Von's show, with its afterthought set design, his studios in Nashville where he lives now, and unassuming effect, is the antithesis of his canned talk shows and the network television has been refining for half a century. And while it's difficult to compare metrics across platforms, Von's audience often tops millions of views on YouTube, and he competes with the glib performances of three major late night shows like Jimmy Fallon, Jimmy Kimmel, and Stephen Colbert. By the way, I wonder if has he moved to Nashville full time? Because I did remember he was living half in LA and half in Texas. So I wonder if he's moved there full time to Texas. Hence why the Nashville thing is there. He can continue. He can draw on a wider range of guests as well. After a wave of social media cancellations that began in 2010s, it's unsurprising that an alternative media universe would emerge to provide a safe harbor for actual alleged or purported transgressors, also social morals, of social mores or politics or misbehavior, who have been derided but maybe not disqualified in earlier generations. I don't think that's true. I don't think podcasts are just a safe haven for cancelled people. I don't think they're a safe haven for people that generally don't get interviewed on mainstream platforms or broadcasters. Simple as that, you know. And obviously the lack of time limit too helps people to just kind of sit down and listen to these type of things. By dint of his down home edginess and comfort with
powerful bunch.
Yo, big up.
For my favorite pilled manosphere podcasters, B-Day.
big up, Aho Joy. Appreciate you, brother. Thank you for the super chat. You're a legend. By dint of his down home edginess and comfort in slick filth, Von somewhat overlaps with the rest of the manosphere. What sets him apart is that he's not particularly cowed by fame or wisdom or authority or aggression. He blends curiosity with humility and treats his guests as conveyors of mystical information, as if he's always slightly punching above his weight. Occasionally, Von's guests say things to his face that scan as slightly dismissive, criticizing Von for his Trump interview. The leftist streamer Hassan Parker told him, that you're not going to hit him on the stuff that he has the answer for. But Von doesn't take offense. Instead, he concedes his shortcomings. I thought that just because I had some political people on last year that I knew politics, he told Piker. I do not. That was a trap. He knows what he doesn't know and thereby lives for the chats with unexpected tributaries. His naivete is both honest and strategic, a carefully laid back roadblock protecting Von and forcing everyone else to move at his unlikely rhythm. Through humor, and he asserts a quiet dominance over the chats, and sometimes he's the butt of the joke. In almost every episode, there comes a moment when Von's guest stumps him. It's never a gotcha. The topic is rarely something terribly obscure. It could be as simple as an event or a word or a person that Theo Von hasn't encountered before. Some recent examples: Mitchell Lama Housing, the Kurds, who wrote the song "Land is Your Land," Miss Andrew. It continues. Other hosts might nod along with or bluster their way through. The arrogantly dismissive, but Von does something quite different. He stops the conversation, asks for clarification. He's keen to be a student. It's a small gesture, but a meaningful and revealing one. Even the way Von sits appears guileless. Sometimes his hands are gathered in his lap shiftively, and he rubs his thighs for comfort. Little fidgets that suggest unease. Much of the time, he one foot rests on the 90-degree angle of the floor, and the other on top of it, like an idle middle schooler. You know, I'm just thinking about watching or reading this and seeing this clip of Timothy Chalamet. You know, would make for a really good interview on Theo Von. His girlfriend Kylie. I think a Kardashian or Kylie or one of the Jenners, they'd make for a great interview.
Powerful bunch.
Hey, yo, big up Wingus. Appreciate you for the support, brother. 6 months. You're a fucking G. Theo Von is a hack. His comedy is cheeks. I'd rather watch Brendan Shaw also fuck his haircut and that weird soy face he pulls bean cheese. Jesus Christ. No. I don't think you could call him a hack. I don't think he's a hack. I do think, unfortunately, Theo's stand-up comedy is garbage compared to how funny he is on pods. It's so unfair. He's really funny on pods, but when he gets on stage, he is terrible. The only thing I've laughed of his when he's on stage was that legendary set that he did. Remember when he went on Joey Diaz and he took all those mushrooms, or he took those Stars of Death, and he had a gig straight after? It's like a legendary thing, and he does a set, mostly crowd work. He crushed it then. That was the only time. But most of these specials that I've watched, pretty garbage. But I don't think he's a hack, personally. I don't think so. I'm a fan of him. I don't mind him. But big up Wingers. Appreciate it, bro. The pacing of Von's conversations can be herky-jerky, blah, 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 as if both Von and his guests are tentatively exploring a new world together. Off-screen, the producer pulls up a text and images from the internet to look for them, and sometimes a slight silence as they take in the information. A rare exception was when Timothée Chalamet came on the show. His antic energy and active shilling for his role in the Bob Dylan biopic bugged Von out of his show. Yeah, that was true. He was really going heavy-handed on the fucking plugs. But I also think it's because Timothée Chalamet isn't used to. He probably doesn't listen to podcasts. He probably doesn't listen to many podcasts. He really doesn't, appear on many. So he treated a podcast like it was a fucking TV show. He was plugging that movie so fucking aggressively hard. Probably too hard for some people's liking, but I didn't mind him on the show overall. Von primarily wants to sit back and have his mind blown. He almost never disagrees with his guest, though his access is beginning to activate some more definitive stances. Sanders, the senator from Vermont, treated his time with Von like a civics lesson, and Von was deeply a game student. America, Von groaned, is a shell LLC for big corporations. Then what am I? I'm just an idiot. You almost feel ashamed of yourself, he said, as Sanders agreed enthusiastically. Von paid equally rapt attention to Lila Meckleswaite, an anti-sex trafficking activist who led a campaign urging Pornhub to remove underage content, as he did with Wayne Owen, a former New York City sanitation worker who brusquely recorded his smellier stories and mused on ways one might dispose of a body undetected. What ethnicity probably has the worst smelling garbage? Von wondered. That's hilarious. He can sometimes free fall into intensive left field phrasing that achieves a sort of bliss. He said he once saw a boxer, Evander Holyfield, putting French fries into his Panama Canal. Kissing someone with lip filler is like trying to eat two shrimps that won't give up. I'm sorry, but that's fucking crazy. Anyway, nudity is the Lord's matte finish is hilarious as well. When Sanders spoke about staying in a centuries-old home in Oxford, Vonix replied, "You got to bring your own plumbing, I'm sure." You've never seen Sanders guff so deeply. One of the three genuine belly laughs Von extracted from the normally unshakable curmudgeon. While Von might socially caucus with other manosphere figures, they are regular presence at UFC Championship events and some of the sat together at Trump's inaugurations. His alignments are terribly political and even terribly masculinist, at least not by comparisons. His politics and extent that he reveals them don't fall neatly along party lines. They reflect the choose-your-own-adventure political affiliations of huge swaths of Americans, lest he be pigeonholed. Von airs politically guessed roughly back-to-back to provide balance. Sanders, Trump, late August, Owens, and Piker last month. Instead, he seems to be moved by an inner morality, an instinctual defense for the downtrodden. He returns frequently to Israel-Hamas war, as he did in Owens' episode. A clip of their conversation with both Von and Owens criticizing Trump's support of Israel was circulated widely by left-leaning accounts and painted in anti-Semitic by the right. But occasionally, his views tilt the other way. In February, he posted and deleted a message on X that was critical of President Vladimir Zelensky after the Ukraine leader calamitous Oval Office meeting. He said, "Tell that guy to give us our tax dollars back." By the way, that would also be a good interview. I would love to see Zelensky sit down with fucking Theo. I think that would be a really fucking good interview. Not gonna cap. Continuing. Morality doesn't prelude humor though, or offense. In Von's calculation, they come by the same soil. An upbringing among the disposed. His fault lines don't harden along lines of race or gender or sexual orientation or political affiliation. Instead, he asks, are you getting stepped on? If not, you're on the wrong side. It's the clearest point of distinction between him and the rest of the manosphere. That's even more clear than Theo leaves his podcast studio, heads out the road to do stand-up in April. Von's return of the Rat Tour went to University of Mississippi. You know what I think? I just think in general, he just seems more sincere, you know? You know, he might, I don't know. I know Wingo said he might be a hack, but I think, let's agree and say Wingo is right, and he is a hack. I think the reason why people give him so much credit and love, he's just less of a hack than everybody else, you know? He's a considerably less of a hack than everyone else. And he at least tries. He at least tries to appear somewhat, you know, I won't say neutral, but he appears to, like, you know, he appears to come at it from the right place. Maybe. Lot of white people, he deadpanned about the audience. Actually, so this article's kind of long and it's still going. Okay, cool. Let's read it. Let's go to the bottom. Let's get to the bottom because I'm getting bored of this now. Last section. He had flickers of Bill Burr's ethical common man exasperation, and also a quicker than he sees gumption of Larry Cable Guy. In one segment, he glibly described black on black gun crime as chocolate freeze tag, and bemoaned how violence can ensnare innocent bystanders. The solution, he said, was to catch young black men. Referring to Oxford's trapped in the antillibulum southern quaintness, Von extolted, "You're free, buddy." Then he talked about ordering okra at a restaurant, calling the vegetable slave jalapenos. Holy shit, that's funny. Let's go back there again. Referring to Oxford's trapped in the antebellum South quaintness, the clock at the top of the town square said 5 p.m. He paused. In 1982, he joked that someone there jumped out from the bushes and asked, "You got any news for the North?" Von scolded, "You're free, buddy." Then he talks about ordering okra at a restaurant, calling the vegetable slave jalapenos. These bits, the line crossing race talk, the hot button words, the naughty glee, were rude, presumptuous, and like many offensive things, predicate upon a fluency with life's endless tragedies. Also funny or close to it. But Von delivers them without vitriol or judgment. His comfort is, depending on the audience member, an invitation to boorishness, a safe place for liberal freakishness, or a squeamish line too far. Von played to them all, while poking at them too. He painted the younger version of himself as an aimless drug user, a person whose family all but dismissed him as a child, and he sprinkled raw childhood pain throughout his set. He described his mother's reaction to him being placed into a learning disabled schoolmates booming, "Oh, you're retarded. How much is this going to cost us?" He wasn't delving into a damaged relationship with his family to demean. He said, "I'm just trying to tell you how I ended up on drugs." Ultimately, the person he was the harshest on, or the most willing to seek his teeth through, was himself. Stories about his upbringing turned Von into a frizzled out Garrison Kellner at the ice cream shop where he's worked as a teen. We were the Underground Railroad for autism. He opens up the freezer. Harriet Tubmanisms would jump out of that bitch. Those early letdowns burned off a part of me that was hopeful, but those mishaps and misadventures made him observant, tolerant, and also ambitious. At the end of the set, he showed a trailer of a movie written and co-directed by David Spade that he said would come out later this year, though he had been rejected by countless studios. He spoke about feeling ostracized by Hollywood and not seen for who he is, the same sort of language he'd earlier used to describe his family, his friends, and the people of his childhood. Being the one on stage, he suggested, didn't make him any different now. Von's comedy and increasingly his political worldview boils down to a crucial framework. You're either one of them or one of us. How far he goes, however, may hinge on making sure both sides to continue to claim him as their own. Yeah. I think the same thing with Bill Burr. I think there's still a lot of people that probably lean right that fuck with Bill Burr. I think it's the same thing. As long as you're able to call things out as you see it, and you're not blinded, and you're not fucking biased, and you don't have agendas and shit, people usually don't give a fuck, you know? It's when you do the whole agenda thing and pretend you're impartial, pretend you're unbiased, people seem to have a problem with it. But in general, I'm a big fan of Theo. I like him. I just wish the stand-up would be as good as the humor and the comedy is on the fucking podcast. It isn't at the moment, but I'm sure eventually he will get there, hopefully. But he's trying to make movies and shows and whatever else it may be, which is also something that I like, because I've complained about it for the longest time on this stream, that these comedians, all they do is sit in front of fucking Shaw mics like I am and just speak endlessly for hours, but they don't really create anything of note or value for the culture, especially given how much money and resources they have, where they can make so much cool stuff. Like, they could keep making movies and lose money and keep making movies, and it wouldn't fucking matter for a lot of these people, but they don't anyway. They don't even try, but they keep complaining, they keep fucking moaning about stuff, and they keep serving us like mid or completely boring shit fucking pods. So if these movies, if these projects give them a new lease of life, or give them an outlet to do more interesting things, I'm all for it. I really am all for it. So big up Theo, big up Bloodclot Theo, big up Bloodclot Theo.